Jesus freak here. So, I was raised in a very conservative Christian household. And I tend to expect that most Protestant Christians I come across are going to be, if they're not squishy progressive Christians or superficial Christians, they're going to be basically the type I was grown up around, or, more conservative than that. So I hang out in a Discord. This is explicitly a Christian Discord. It's run by a pastor. He wanted me there. He thought I might have some insight to contribute, and I guess I have. Because I was a regular in his YouTube chats. Well, in passing, I made a comment that I had self-censored. And I said I had deliberately avoided saying it full on. Because of course you'd be offended. You're conservative Christian. Of course you're going to be offended. I'm a liberal Christian, although I am, very much strict on the details, that I have a different interpretation. But I figure, these people are going to have the traditional interpretation even when I don't. So, if that's what I expect them to think, I said, of course you're going to take offense if I say something like, holy hell. And they were shocked that I said that. I said, because of course it's offensive to you. Why wouldn't it be? What it was is I had to self-censor at my reaction to how, I believe it was the NLT translated something. I think it was in 1 John 5. Whereas they had paraphrased, I believe it was 1 John 5:6, so that it was talking about Jesus' crucifixion. And I said, I can't believe they translate it that way. Of course it's not about the crucifixion, it's about Docetism. Which I guess I have to give you the context to explain the specific verse that I'm talking about. Because it's right before a controversial textual question. And the phrase in question is, "This is he that came by water and blood, even Jesus Christ, not by water only, but by water and blood. And it is the Spirit that beareth witness, because the Spirit is truth." And this translation, I think it was, like I said, the NLT, interpreted water and blood to refer to the spear being thrust in Jesus' side and water and blood coming out. I said the reason that blood is, it's the water of the womb and the blood confirming that he came in the flesh. And I almost said, holy hell, that's a bad translation. But I held back. And I'm like, of course you're going to have a problem with that. Why wouldn't you? And they expressed shock. Not that I said holy hell, because I didn't actually say that. I said holy H. But they expressed shock that I'd think that they'd have a problem with saying holy hell. And this came up into, I was talking about how I was taught to understand Matthew 5:28 in a very strict sense. And you've seen in my videos that I understand Matthew 5:28 in a very strict sense. When I said that it would be wrong for a Christian vegan to eat a meat analog, I was pointing to Matthew 5:28. Now, in this same conversation, I wound up pointing to other verses that could also be used to bolster the claim, and probably were more used in these same circles to do so. For example, 1 Thessalonians 5:22 in the KJV form. It's abstain from all appearance of evil. And I think the other one that I was referencing was... It was Colossians 3:8. But now you also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Was used for the language one. And the general reaction I got was shock that I'd take these verses so strongly. I said, there's times that I've gone to the store on Sunday because I felt I couldn't wait till Monday. And I felt guilty for it. And they seemed to think that was, extreme. You see, it was just accepted until not that long ago. You don't do worldly business on Sundays. I think it was about not quite 20 years ago that they finally repealed the law saying you couldn't buy alcohol on Sunday mornings in New York State. They changed it from you couldn't buy it before noon on a Sunday to you couldn't buy it any day before 8. And it used to be on Sunday pretty much nowhere was open after 6. Even if otherwise they were open till almost midnight. They might be open for a couple hours on Sunday, that's it. Like I said, if I do run out of something, I try to be like, can it wait till Monday? Even if it is, something that I really need. Unless it's like, medicine. And even then I kind of feel guilty about it. Now, on to the language thing. I gave holy hell as an example. When I was a kid, if I said heck or darn, it was treated as if I'd dropped the F-bomb. Because again, even the thought was considered to be the same as committing the crime. These two pretty, benign examples as they may be, these I just took for granted people would say they're wrong because according to this interpretation, there'd be violations of commandments, the Ten Commandments. Whatever you might believe about the applicability of any of Mosaic law to the New Testament age, apart from what's explicitly mentioned in the New Testament, which does include, to be fair, most of the Ten Commandments. But the importance of this was, United Methodists are not considered conservative Christians generally. And I've always been, so much as I've been anything, United Methodist. I can assure you that there have been conservative Methodists. And I'm not talking about, like the Salvation Army's conservative Methodists, Free Methodists conservative. I'm talking within the mainline Methodism. But it's like, what? I thought that only progressive Christians were accepting of things like that. Because in my upbringing, that is how they were treated. You couldn't even say darn or heck, let alone damn or hell, let alone any actual profanity. Except maybe demonstratively. You know what I'm saying? Like my grandmother once said, I kept saying hotter than Hades because I'm not going to say hotter than hell. And I just took for granted, I guess, that the way I was raised was a baseline that anyone who wasn't a progressive Christian would be at. And maybe that means I'm just assuming they're a lot stricter than they are. You've seen that I am, despite being a liberal Christian myself, that I am very strict. A paradox that I've been very open about. Anyway, had to get some things off my chest. Jesus, freak out.